Welcome back, Block TV. It's time for Power Block, where we sit down with some of the major power players in the industry to discuss the latest news and trends of the market. To do this, I am joined by none other than crypto analyst and vice president at BitTax, Lokai Cohen. Hello.
Hi.
And today, two blondes. And today we're hosting the CEO of SatoshiLabs, Marek Palatinus, joining us from Prague. And Mark, before anything else, a little bit about you. As mentioned, you are well known as Slush, of course. You're the inventor of the Bitcoin mining pool concept and the operator of the Slush mining pool, designer of the lightweight Stardom protocol, and the core programmer of Trezor. With nearly 15 years experience in IT, you have also co-developed several successful internet startups and worked as an enterprise architect of one of the largest banks in Central Europe. And of course, you're an early adopter of Bitcoin since you found out about it in 2010. You dedicated your entire time to developing useful services and tools that can make Bitcoin widely adopted. Thank you so much for joining us from Prague today.
Hello.
Hello to you. I'm going to start with a little bit of some recent controversy, talking about the back and forth Twitter feud between you and your competitor Ledger, as has been playing out on social media, Twitter over the course of the last 2 days. The back and forth, there we go. The back and forth between you and Ledger, dishonest, manipulative has been called. Is this a professional disagreement or outright animosity in the competitive market?
Yeah, well, we usually don't speak about our competition and what our competition does. But when they speak about us, we feel like it's a great chance to correct them and tell our story or our attitude. So yeah, it's mainly disagreements like on some philosophical points. I don't think it's like personal, and I will speak more about this topic in March on Bitcoin 2020. As I think the most important difference in between Trezor and other hardware wallets on the market is how we work with transparency and how we work with NDAs and non-NDAs hardware, which you can use for building hardware wallets.
Do you find that a lot of what's happening, as you mentioned, you're going to talk about this at Bitcoin 2020, which is at March, but do you find that these are things that are played out on Twitter, that's the place to, to go about that back and forth?
Yeah, again, we never wrote about our competition like officially. You can't find. I think we never wrote about competition on the blog posts or in official channels. But yeah, we feel the need to answer others. So yeah.
Well, let's see this play out then in Bitcoin 2020, as you mentioned. Going back to our issue today, the price of cryptos is climbing. It's been a phenomenal 2020. They've become more lucrative targets also, though, for attacks and thefts as the price rises. How do you at Trezor keep ahead of those dangers?
Yeah, our mission is to build tools for people to take money back to their hand. And one of these, the important thing on this is that we decentralize money. It's completely in line with Bitcoin philosophy since the beginning. And one of the biggest advantage of the hardware wallet on the market is that you don't have too many Bitcoins at one place, like with online exchanges, online services, and so on. So the main purpose of the hardware wallets is to decentralize keeping of the money, decentralize the attack vector. So hackers need to address one hardware wallet at one time, or how to say it. It's much harder to attack hardware wallets which are spread around the globe than one centralized service.
It's much harder, but they're still being hacked. What are you guys at Trezor doing to try and combat that?
Yeah, nothing is really unhackable, and it's always about the cost, usability of the solution. It's always a matter of the time and of the willingness of the attacker. We only our attitude is to explain to users and give them the tools so they can build their security model for them for their own. We empower them to learn how the Bitcoin works, how the security works, and at the same time we are trying to make it as much easy to use, and our focus in mainly on the usability thing. So they think when the people won't be scared of take their money back to their hands, the Bitcoin will win.
Then Bitcoin will win. I've got some issues about, it's great to empower users. It's just, it's a question of the users who want to be empowered. Orla Kai here of BitAx has a question, or go ahead.
So we all know that people are saving big amounts of money in cold storage and not in wallets that are not cold storage. So do you feel like the cold storage wallets are more sensitive towards hacking than regular wallets?
Yeah, of course, there's so many bitcoins on cold storage solutions and on hardware wallets, but still there are like millions of devices around the world. So the incentive to attack centralized service where the coins are always very usually they are accessible online, is actually much easier and much more effective for hackers, as we see like 99% of the lost coins is comes from online hacks, exchanges, and so on. So really, we are making it more harder for hackers when there's no single point of failure, no big hoard of bitcoins at one place. And still, when you check the how many coins are stored on exchanges globally, like biggest online exchanges, there's still a lot of work to done. Like we really need to be better in explaining to people that they finally with Bitcoin they finally have a chance to own the money. And when you keep the bitcoins on online exchange, you don't own the money. You don't own the money. You only have a promise of the exchange that it will give you money eventually.
And when you say though that people need to be educated on how to own their own money, how has that been going for Trezor when it comes to clientship?
Yeah, the biggest goal which we are facing is to just explain how to do this conveniently and safely. And I think this is quite similar um, mission like banks did in 1970, 1980 to explain to people that they are okay with credit cards, with debit cards, with paying online. People were used just to use paper money, and banks spent billions of dollars to teach people that they don't have they don't have to use paper money to spend for their purchases. And I think Bitcoin is doing the same, except that we need to teach people that they don't need to use third parties. They have money in their hands. No banks,
They have money in
no
their hands.
no.
It's a lofty idea. The only issue with that sometimes is, what about the older generation? Because it's going to be hard to onboard them. But let's go back to the rise in price. It's also supposed to bring about wider adoption among institutional investors. Do you have a separate plan for institutional investors?
Our mission, as I said already, is to empower people to be able to care about their money, to hold their money in their hands. And for this reason, we want to do one thing properly, and our mission is to do exactly this one thing. So right now we don't have any plans for institutional for institutional companies or institutions because it's not our mission. Yeah.
It's not your mission. Okay. So you're not, it's not institutional adoption at this point is not your mission.
Yeah, exactly. We are like a retail product, and anybody can buy Trezor in any on Amazon, on any local store, and so on. It's our mission to give end customer, the retail tool to do this properly. I think institutional business is completely different. Like they need completely different solutions. They have completely different needs. There is a lot of pressure on the regulation and certification and so on. I think it's from some perspective incompatible with Bitcoin and with end user security.
Okay, that's definitely a succinct way of going about it. Speaking of regulations, though, or when it comes to regulation, you have a question.
Yeah, so I agree. It's very important to self-educate everybody to take their own responsibility concerning their money. But if you think about the society, so money laundering wise, crime wise, and also taxes wise, which I know it's a bad thing to say, but it's also good for society. So exchanges does update with regulation, KYC, AML process, while the wallets so far are doing nothing really to keep the money safe, you know, not only to educate the people, but to really worry for society. Don't you think so?
I'm not sure if I got your point, but for me, exchanges are mainly marketplaces for trading, for getting into the Bitcoin to cashing out eventually from the Bitcoin. But for me, it's the bridge between the old financial system, like banks and corporations and so on, and the new financial system. And once you really get into the rabbit hole, and once you get learn about the Bitcoin and you understand its consequences and you see the power of Bitcoin, you really don't need
But
marketplaces
Slash, I
anymore
mean,
because you are
that is an expectation that anybody who goes down the rabbit hole will jump on, but some won't. So you know that's my question to you: is that the road to mass adoption? Just believing that everybody will jump onto the Bitcoin train?
Yeah, I think exchanges are really useful because they make it convenient for people from the streets, like for masses. I think it's just an intermediary step. Like I saw so many people around me started with some exchange, buying first Bitcoin, then learn more, and realize that it's not about holding money on exchanges like holding money on banks. So I understand it's important for the mass adoption, but it's not like a final step. And I'm completely okay with online exchanges because I believe in free market, and I believe that anybody can do anything he wants. And I also use online exchanges for some practical reasons, but I don't think they are suitable for actually storing, like holding Bitcoins for a long time.
Okay. Finally, last question. What is your hope for the future? Where's Trezor 5 years from now?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Where will Trezor be 5 years from now? What are your hopes for the future?
I believe it. We have many things in our sleeves. Like I don't want to reveal everything right now. We will announce something in Bitcoin 2020, and generally our mission is to produce solutions for retail for end users to empower them to get into the Bitcoin. And the most important thing is that all we do is fully open source, and it's in line with Bitcoin philosophy itself. So like we are building on top of the ideas of Bitcoin, and we are empowering people to get into this in full open source and full transparent, and in a way that they don't need to trust any promise, any closed source thing, or any online change and so on.
Just need to trust Trezor.
No,
Okay.
actually no. Everything what we do is open source, which means it's fully auditable. We have our competition watching our hands. There are security researchers watching our hands.
Right.
There is actually a huge community, and everything we do can be audited and is audited basically in real time. So even if the people are not programmers, they don't understand security, they can just ask other people on the Twitter, on the Reddit, elsewhere. We are really transparent with our security breaches. Like we are improving this for 7 years already, and we are it's continuous process. There's no 100% security. It's always evolving. We have a bounty program. There are many responsible disclosures from the community. We are working on this. It's really living ecosystem, and that's what's the most important. We are not gatekeepers. We are not talking.
You're not the
We are
gatekeeper.
not saying to people trust us. We just empower the Bitcoin. We build on the ideas of Bitcoin. Like Satoshi is not a gatekeeper.
Let's hope it works out in the long run. Slush, I want to thank you so much. As you said, a lot will be revealed in Bitcoin 2020 in March. Thank you for joining us on BLOCKTV, or thank you for being with us here today. And of course, we are BLOCKTV.
For more news and updates, follow us on Twitter.